So where is all the money going to come from for what the federal government's promising, including today's mooted dental scheme? One of that scheme's architects is the Greens' Richard Di Natale. He joined me earlier from Melbourne. Senator Di Natale, this dental package is going to cost $4.1 billion. Where do the Greens think the money should come from?
Look, that's really a question for the government. They've outlined that spend will be outlined in the mid-year economic forecast. We're thrilled with the announcement. That $4 billion means that 3.5 million kids will now get access to Medicare-funded dental treatment. It means that we're going to see a situation where more than $1 billion is spent on the state public dental system, and we're going to see infrastructure in regional Australia. So that's a huge win.
You've pushed for this funding. You don't have any ideas about where the money should come from?
Well, look, the Greens have got a range of spending revenue initiatives. We've already said that there are things like enormous fossil fuel subsidies where we could save hundreds of millions of dollars. It will be up to the government to ensure where it finds that money from. We know that this is an investment that's been necessary for many, many years. It's one of the biggest reforms to the nation's healthcare system since the introduction of Medicare, and we're really pleased that the government came to the negotiation with the Greens in good faith and ensured that what we see now is a situation where cost is no longer a huge barrier for people being able to access a dentist.
I want to turn to a different subject. Last night we had a story on the program from West Papua which alleged that an Indonesian police unit trained by the Australian Federal Police is targeting separatists. This is an issue that you've been asking questions about in the Parliament. Are you satisfied in exchange for Australian training that Indonesia is being sufficiently transparent about the activities of Detachment 88?
No, I'm not, Leigh. In fact, I'm really concerned about where Australian dollars are being spent, how they're being spent, and the level of accountability that there is in terms of the support we give to the Indonesian military. I commend the work that Hayden Cooper did on this report. Not many people know about the ongoing tragedy that's occurring in West Papua, and the fact that Australian dollars are training Indonesian military, particularly counter-terrorism operations that are contributing to human rights abuses in West Papua is of real concern to me. It is of great concern to the Greens. We have been pursuing it in the Parliament and the answers so far have been unsatisfactory.
Last night the Foreign Minister Bob Carr said on the program that the counter-terrorism cooperation with Indonesia is extremely important because we need to obviously stay on top of terrorism in this region to protect Australian lives. Do you accept that?
Look, there is an argument to say that we do need to focus on supporting counter-terrorism operations in our region, but that can't come at the cost of the lives of the West Papuan people. So we've got a situation where we have very little accountability in terms of how our money is being spent, and we've got very troubling reports that many of the troops that we are training are in fact now engaged not in counter-terrorism but in counter-separatism. That is, they are engaged in an ongoing conflict against the indigenous West Papuan people. People being shot in the street, people being slayed with machetes. We've seen peaceful protests erupting in gunfire and violence. We're seeing people like Philip Karma rotting in a jail in Indonesia for more than 10 years for flying the West Papuan flag. We've got to be much more vocal, more active in terms of our presence on this issue. I'm pleased that the issue's now reached the public consciousness through the great work of 730. The Foreign Minister needs to take a leadership role. He needs to make it very clear to his counterpart in Indonesia that what's going on in the region is unacceptable, and we need to get some clear accountability about how our money is being spent in the region.
If it were found beyond a shadow of a doubt that Detachment 88 was involved in human rights abuses in Papua, what should the Australian government's response be?
Well, I think there's a very strong argument that we should be withdrawing our support of those operations immediately. We don't want Australians to be fueling the human rights abuses that are going on in that region. Well, we've got a situation at the moment where journalists aren't even given access to West Papua, where human rights monitors aren't being given access to the region. We've got to do something about that, and if we're in fact fueling that conflict, the onus is on us to ensure that we stop doing that and we get much better accountability in terms of our relationship with the Indonesians.
Senator, thank you very much.
Pleasure.